Week 2 of the fantasy football season, and here's a few players I look to sell and trade this week. The first one, Jaden Reed of the Green Bay Packers. So what a week 1 it was for Jaden Reed in that shootout in Brazil versus the Philadelphia Eagles, where he had a carry for 33 yards and a touchdown on a jet sweep and 4 catches, 138 yards, and a touchdown on 6 targets. So Jaden Reed, what a rookie year was for him last year, 10 touchdowns. But I believe now with Jordan Love out 3 to 6 weeks with the MCL injury, this whole offense as a whole is going to go down for this Green Bay Packer team, where Malik Willis, he don't have really any starter experience. He's more of a running quarterback than a thrower of the football. Unless the Packers go out there and make a trade or pick someone off the scrap heap, I don't really see Jaden Reed doing much. And he also has a great rapport with Jordan Love, where they both came in with the starting unit last season for this Green Bay Packer team. So right now, after coming off a monster performance and with Jordan Love out multiple weeks, I think it's a no-brainer to sell off Jaden Reed this week. Most fantasy owners might not fall for the bait, but if you could get Reed off your roster and get something decent in return, this would be the time to do it. The next player, Ramondre Stevenson of the New England Patriots. So Stevenson, this possibly could be his best game of the year. I know it's only week 1, but 25 carries, 120 rush yards, and a touchdown at the Cincinnati Bengals. 3 catches, 6 yards in that game. So Stevenson, I know in the offseason, signed a nice contract extension. Obviously, he's the number 1 back. Antonio Gibson's not really going to give him competition at all, I believe. And Stevenson as a solid number 2 running back, no doubt about it, to help fantasy owners. But for him to put up back 1 numbers, I just don't see it happening. And the schedule gets tougher with Seattle coming to New England next week. Then at the New York Jets in week 3, which is one of the better defenses in the league. And then week 4 at San Francisco. So the next 3 weeks could be pretty rough for Ramondre Stevenson, especially weeks 3 and 4, like I said, at the New York Jets and at the San Francisco 49ers. So after coming off a monster performance and possibly could be his best performance this season in terms of rushing yards for Stevenson in a game, he's a sell-high player this week. The next player, Rasheed Shaheed of the New Orleans Saints. So Shaheed, he's going to be a deep ball or nothing, I believe, for this New Orleans Saints team. And coming off a 3-catch, 73-yard touchdown performance versus the Carolina Panthers, I would sell Shaheed high. I know he's only owned in 55% of fantasy leagues, but he's coming off a big ball game. Is Shaheed, where he versed one of the worst defenses in the league. And I still believe this offense isn't that great as well. New Orleans Saints team, where Derrick Carr is the middle of the pack to bottom end quarterback in the league. Chris Olave also had a bad week 1 where he only had 3 points in PPR leagues. And Rasheed Shaheed's a deep ball or nothing. So coming off a game where he scored that deep ball and had a touchdown, I would sell him off this week as Rasheed Shaheed. I'm not expecting to get much in a deal, but if you could get a quarterback, I believe, or even a tight end in a deal for Shaheed, this would be the time to do it for fantasy owners. Like I said, there's going to be weeks of inconsistency because he's pretty much been a deep ball threat or nothing throughout his NFL career, and in an inconsistent offense, and also what a tough matchup here in week 2 versus the Dallas Cowboys, where they're one of the better defenses in the league. Next, sell Alvin Kamara of the New Orleans Saints. Kamara coming off a ball game versus the Carolina Panthers, where we know they're one of the worst teams on defense in the league. 15 carries, 83 yards of rushing touchdown, 5 catches, 27 yards for Kamara in that ball game. So Alvin Kamara, we know he still could catch the football out of the backfield, but I believe in between the tackles, as the year goes on, his numbers are going to go down for Alvin Kamara. I know there's not much competition over there. Jamal Williams, he's more short yardage, a goal line back. Taysom Hill, they bring him in on some packages, but obviously he's not going to get a huge workload. And Keandre Miller, he's out for the first few games of the season as well with injury. So right now, Alvin Kamara coming off a good game, and he's got a couple tough ball games coming up at Dallas and Philly with good defensive lines where the numbers could drop, even though, like I said, in PPR leagues, he's going to get a lot of easy catches for short yardage. I still would sell Kamara off because this could be one of his better games as well this season. Next sells Chris Godwin of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers put up a monster ball game in a 37-20 victory in week 1 versus the Washington Commanders. He had 8 catches, 83 yards, and a touchdown on 8 targets. But I believe Godwin and Evans both can't be productive week in and week out together. So Chris Godwin, a matchup, went out there, took advantage, no doubt about it, for this Tampa Bay Buccaneer team. In week 2, it's a middle-of-the-pack matchup with the Detroit Lions, where the secondary definitely improved in the offseason, even though I could see this ball game being a pretty high-scoring game between the two teams. But like I said, Chris Godwin, more underneath route runner, and an out router is Chris Godwin, with Baker Mayfield throw that deep ball more, and him and Mike Evans have a good rapport. So after coming off a nice ball game, Chris Godwin, he's a sell-high candidate. And I'm not saying to sell these players and dump them off for anything, but if you need like a running back, a tight end, or a quarterback, and you could sell one of these players off for that position of need, this will be the time to do it, because I know it's only 1 week and anything can happen. But I believe some of these players aren't going to be putting up these consistent numbers like they have. Next sell is J.K. Dobbins of the Los Angeles Chargers. So J.K. Dobbins, he was an ad off the waiver wire, available in 51% of fantasy leagues. And I've said this in other videos, if you could add someone off the waiver wire and flip them in a trade, this is what you do, because I believe J.K. Dobbins definitely lost a step, and rightfully so, coming off a torn ACL and torn Achilles over the last couple seasons. He's not going to get a full workload with Gus Edwards in the backfield for this Los Angeles Charger team, where it's going to be a 50-50 split. And he's not going to average 13 yards a carry like he did in Week 1 versus the Vegas Raiders. So with all those factors against J.K. Dobbins, and especially health being the number one factor, I believe J.K. Dobbins is a sell-high candidate, and this definitely could have been his best game of the season as well, where he had over 130 yards rushing with a touchdown. So after coming off the monster performance, I would sell Dobbins high this week. And the final play I look to sell in trades, Derrick Henry of the Baltimore Ravens. I know Henry's value might be down a little bit after Week 1. The usage wasn't great, and I think this is what it's going to be for Derrick Henry in ball games where they're trailing or they're blowing teams out. Henry, he's not going to see the field a lot, especially in games they're trailing where Justice Hill's going to come in on all passing downs. We didn't see Derrick Henry in there at all on 1 3rd and long or a passing down situation where it was all Justice Hill who had 6 catches. And Derrick Henry, I know, had 2 targets. They tried to set up a couple screens for him, but if he didn't get that rushing touchdown, he would have had a 4.5-point fantasy day, is Derrick Henry. So with also Lamar Jackson taking some goal line work as well, we're going to see as the season goes on. I think Derrick Henry, a lot of people were still high on him. They like the landing spot. And obviously, he's been a great running back throughout his NFL career. But I think we're going to see a lot of weeks where there's inconsistent weeks. And some weeks he'll have some boom weeks, is Henry. But right now, where he was drafted, and I think he's more name value than a big-time running back that's going to put up those monster numbers week in and week out. Play I would sell this week, so that's a few plays I look to sell and trade for Week 2 of the fantasy football season.